soldiers. So, to get back to what I was saying, we were on a fire base, which we would set up a perimeter, and then they would fly artillery in and set up an artillery battery so that the artillery was close enough to be within range of whatever units happened to be in the area. And they would keep moving this artillery around. Wherever the infantry units went, they would put an artillery base. So half the infantry in the area would be covering the artillery, would be protecting it, and the other half would be out patrolling. And on this day, we were in covering artillery. My unit was covering artillery when I joined them. And my first impression, which was really surprising, was the abundance of marijuana. There was a lot of marijuana going around, and everybody was smoking. And I thought, wait a minute, they never smoke marijuana in the movies. You know, I mean, there's something not right here. You know, these are not like the guys in the movies. You know, but that was my introduction to marijuana. It's the first time I'd ever had marijuana in my whole life, and I didn't dare say no. I mean, I've been in Vietnam all in one day, and here were guys that'd been there, you know, even guys who had been there 6 weeks. There was a world of difference between me and them. Those were old veterans to me. You did what they told you to do, and you didn't piss them off. You were the new guy, you know, and you were the low man on the totem pole. And if they handed you a marijuana joint, then by God, you smoked it because you didn't want to offend them, you know. And not having ever had marijuana in my life, I instantly got stoned. And then they said, okay, now you got to go out and stand on the perimeter, and you got to watch and guard us. And I'm going like, I can't even see straight. How am I going to guard you? But I managed, you know, because that was one of the lessons I had to learn, was no matter what, you managed. And as I got used to the unit and started knowing people in the unit, I was able to make choices. And my choices were, I didn't like marijuana because I really needed to be in control out here. And it scared me. It scared me to not have all of my senses working, you know, and being very attuned. So, let's see, I got there in August, and we were in the Central Highlands. We were just about halfway up the country, towards the coast, a place called the Bang Son Plains, which was primarily occupied by Viet Cong. And I say Viet Cong as opposed to North Vietnamese. There were two different wars going on in Vietnam. One was against the Viet Cong, who were true insurgents. They hit in small units. They ambushed, they sniped, they set booby traps, they laid landmines, but they wouldn't come out and fight in a pitched battle. Whereas the North Vietnamese army, or hardcore as we used to call them, they would come at you with more people than you had. But they tended to limit themselves to the northern provinces, up where the Marines worked, and also down along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and into the jungles towards the western part of Vietnam. We were working on the Bang Son Plains, which is a coastal plain, and one valley in, the An Lo Valley. And the An Lo Valley was a particularly scary place because it was a free fire zone, which basically meant that the U.S. military went into that valley before I even got there and cleared the valley. Just took everybody who lived there and moved them. And again, without understanding that because of their religion and because of their culture, you just simply didn't pick them up and move them. I mean, in America, if you said, okay, this area is dangerous, you have to take your family, gather up your belongings, and we're going to relocate you to someplace that's safer, we would say, okay, you know, we don't like it, it's not, you know, it's hard, but we'll do it. In Vietnam, especially among Buddhists, their home was not only their home, it was their ancestral ground. Their shrines were there, their ancestors were buried there. It was extremely important to them that they stay connected to the land. And so when you moved in there and said, okay, we're clearing this valley because there's a lot of Viet Cong activity here and it's not safe for you, it's not safe for us, we got to move you out. You literally had to drag them kicking and screaming out of their homes because they thought they were abandoning their ancestors, they thought they were abandoning their shrines. They weren't, they didn't think anything. We were pulling them not only away from their homes, we were pulling them away from their grounding, their place in the world, you know, who they were. And then we were going to, the U.S. military, were relocating them to what were called strategic hamlets, which were little more than prisons. It was, we told them that this was for your benefit. You can live in a village, you can farm, you can do everything you did before, but you have to stay inside this area because that's the only way we can guarantee your safety. But, you know, you're selling the idea that you're holding the Viet Cong out, but you're holding the people in also, you know, and what's the difference between that and prison? So this was called winning hearts and minds, by the way. This is how we were going to win the people over. The strategy was, as General Westmoreland said, is win their hearts and minds, the rest will follow. And the strategy for winning the war was to win over the people to the extent that they will no longer support the Viet Cong, in which case the Viet Cong would wither on the vine, because you can't be an insurgent without support of the population. You need the food, you need the hiding places, you need all of that. And unless the people are willing to give that to you, you can't exist, you can't survive. Obviously, the people were willing to give that to them to the extent that we had to literally take the people and move them out. So that created what was called a free fire zone. A free fire zone meant when you're in that valley, anything that moves, you kill it. You see anything move, shoot it. And that was one of the scarier places, is when you were in a valley at night and nobody's supposed to be out there. Animals are out there. I mean, you know, there's always movement. There's always movement in the night, you know. But you're already spooked. And the worst case scenario is a miscommunication where another unit is in that valley and you go in and you don't recognize each other and you have a firefight between two American units. That's worst case scenario. And you hope that that wouldn't happen. So I operated with my unit on the Bangsan Plains in the Anlo Valley. I got in my first firefight there. I was absolutely terrified. Most people think about firefights, most people think about shooting and being in war from the point of view of being behind the rifle. Very few people think about what it's like to be in front of the rifle. To know that somebody's out there and is trying very hard to kill you. You can